or lash out at anyone. You can get into arguments at home, and that's a little bit different. You know, you're at close quarters with a mate, with a wife or a husband or something, and you're going to have things that you have to express. But generally speaking, I am pretty mellow and at ease with everyone. And anyone met me on the street would tell you I'm accessible, I'm friendly, I always have a good word and a smile, and I ask what your name is and all that shit. Mm-hmm. So there's no anger here. The thing they see on stage that seems angry is my irritation, my dissatisfaction, my disenchantment with all the shit that these two entities have shown me. These two entities are the species that I belong to and the culture that I belong to. I think each of them have squandered great gifts that were given to them. The species was given the gift of communication and the ability to cooperate and compete in some sort of balance that would make the species move forward, thrive. Mm-hmm. Well, competition and cooperation have gotten out of balance. We don't cooperate as well anymore. We mostly compete. And I think we've let God and the cash register get in the way of everything that's important. The same thing is true of this culture here. We were given these great freedoms and this great philosophy and theory of self-government and democracy, and we turned it all over to the money traders and the high priests. People are just driven by these religious superstitions, by the pursuit of goods, the pursuit of money, and therefore power, and it's just completely out of balance. It's life out of balance, as the Hopi Indians would say. Right. And that is what gets me a little irritated about what happened. I feel betrayed by my culture, betrayed by my species. So that reads as anger on a stage because you have to heighten everything on a stage for theatrical purposes anyway. So it seems like I'm an angry guy.
Right.
That's my answer.
Wow. Thanks. Now, when I met you with Jackie Mason,
yeah,
I heard you say to him that you feel he's one of the greatest three comics of all time.
Yeah.
Who are the other two?
Well, you know, one time when I saw him years ago on the street, and he had not started his Broadway phase yet. In other words, the most important part of his career hadn't even really started yet. I had known him from his first surge, mm-hmm. and his television days, and then when he went into a little bit of an eclipse, I would follow him. I saw him at a club in Santa Monica and stuff, and I always told him, I always said to him that. I always said, you're one of my top 5 or one of my top 3 or something like that. And I don't know who the others are. I just know there's a very small group that I think are the best. And so after telling him for years that, you know, you're one of my top 3, he said, let me ask you a question. He says, who are these other people? Can you give me the names of these other people, please? So I don't know who they are. Obviously, I love Lenny Bruce and Richard Pryor, what they did.
Right.
But Jackie Mason is just very special, and I don't know. God, I guess, you know, if I had a half an hour and a pencil and a paper, I could sit and come up with a nice list of 10 people. I think Woody Allen's brain is great. You know, I could come up with a list of 10 people who I thought were just in my book, I would go back and listen to over and over. Red Fox is one of them. Right. There's just maybe 10 or 15 of them. And then the list tends to want to get a little bigger. A guy like Louis Black comes along, you know, mm-hmm. and Mitch Hedberg, who's gone now, but who had such a good head. I like Stephen Wright, you know. Mm-hmm. But when it comes to year in, year out, more and more, and stuff that you can count on, Jackie Mason is one of those kind of guys.
Right.
And every time I see him in person, I ask him to do Ed Sullivan, and man, when he does Frank Sinatra, it's so fucking. He's so physical, and you know he doesn't need to be. He's an accomplished verbal comic. His ideas are great. His politics are not all the same politics I have, but he expresses them beautifully, and he finds the truth in it. Mm-hmm. And then on top of that, he can do physical things. And he works an audience too.
Right.
Mister, are you listening? Tell the truth, Mister. Are you a homosexual? I just always loved that shit when he just stops the show. And I know what he's doing. He's vamping.
Right.
And that's okay.
People don't even know to the extent that he can do it. Like, he can do impressions of guys you'd never imagine. I can name almost any old-time stand-up comic to him.
I'll bet you.
He could do a perfect impression of them.
I wouldn't be surprised.
It's amazing.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I'll tell you a story about Jackie Mason and me. When I was with my partner, Burns and Carlin, we were a team, Burns and Carlin.
Right.
In our first year, we only spent 2 years together, 1960, from the middle of 60 to the middle of 62. And one of the things we did when we were in the New York area was to work a club date, a one-night club date, for a dinner for a special kind of audience,
Right.
That's what they call, I don't know if they still call them club dates, a one-nighter. And yeah, we got $50 for this thing at the St. George Hotel in Brooklyn, and the group was the Brooklyn Gas Merchants. And Jackie Mason was on ahead of us.
Right.
And he was somewhat beginning to be known, but he had nowhere near, I think, even reached his first peak. And one of the things that Burns and Carlin did in our act, I imitated, Jack and I did Huntley and Brinkley and Nixon and Kennedy.
Yeah.
And he did Huntley interviewing me as Kennedy. But Jackie Mason, we were standing behind the curtain, and we liked Jackie, and he was on before us, and we're listening. He stayed on a long time, naturally, which is murder. It just kills you. Mm-hmm. He was the accomplished performer. We were not. Right. We did little, cute little skits. And he launched into his Kennedy to close with. Mm-hmm. And it was, perfect, and the lines were funny and everything. So we came on, and we were a big anticlimax, to say the least. And that was my first taste of Jackie, and it involved one of his great impressions, in this case, Kennedy.
I remember you used to do a lot of impressions in your act when you were starting out. I saw an old clip of you on the Mike Douglas show. Yeah. When John Lennon and Yoko Ono were co-hosting.
Yeah. And one of the things I did in order to break the ice in a nightclub when I'd be working